Hi, my name is Quentin. I am the manager at Load My Boat and the head installer. And today we're going to show you the installation on how to put your boat on a loader like this.
So what we need to do is balance your boat. So you need a sawhorse, something to balance it, 2x4, the front roller which comes in the kit. You can put it on a couple sawhorses as well. So you just need to find the balance point on the boat. If you need a friend, get a friend, saves the back. Get to the point where you find the center balance point. You're going to measure on both sides to make sure it's equal. If it's not quite equal, just adjust it on either side. Just make sure that your numbers are equal on both sides. Once you find your balance point, mark it on both sides. Once you have found your balance point, remove your sawhorse, put your boat back on the ground, and flip it right side up. Now that you have your two marks on both sides, you're going to put a straight edge across it. Once you put your straight edge across, you're going to measure from the straight edge to the bow of your boat and write that number down. You'll need this for future reference. Now that you have that number, you're going to measure from the stern of the boat and add 7 inches to the number that you got from measuring from the straight edge to the bow. Once you have that number, make a mark. Do this on both sides. Now that you have that mark, you're going to measure down 5 inches. Make sure you're straight up and down from the mark on your gunnels. Do this on both sides. This is where you drill your 3/8 hole. Do this on both sides. This is where you install your eyelets. So you've got a bolt, a lock washer, 2 fender washers, and an eye nut. So when you put it together, the fender washers squish the hull of your boat. When you're tightening up your eye nut, make sure that it's a 45-degree angle towards the back of your boat. These are the steps to balance your boat. Setting up the uprights. Make sure you loosen off the bolts. This is just for shipping purposes. Remove the bolts from the bottom of the uprights. Once the bolts are removed, you'll attach them to the base plates. Best thing is to feed the bolts from the outside to the inside, not to the inside of the base plate. Just hand tighten them at this point. Snug them up super tight after the adjustment of the height is done. This is setting up the upright to the height of the top of your cab. So at this point you need to go and measure from the top of your box to 1 inch above your max height on your cab. At this point you can take your nuts and tighten them all up. Repeat this on all 4 base plates. When putting the upright on the base plates, make sure that the seat is in the channel correctly. So if you don't, you're going to create a gap, which is a possibility of breaking bolts. This is incorrect. Just wedge them up, tilt them in the right spot, snug them, tighten them. This is correct. Now that the uprights are assembled, loosen the nuts on the top of the uprights. Do this on all 4 corners. Grab your cross member, set it on top of your uprights. Just gently slide the carriage bolts inside the channels.
Line them up so the square goes in the slot. You may have to loosen off the nuts a little bit. Just place them in a portion of the way. Do this on both sides. Repeat the process on the other cross member as well. Setting up the sleeves. Take the insert, slide it into the rail about 5 inches or approximately halfway. After you adjust it, put in the set screws and don't forget the lock washers. You can use an Allen key. You can use a ratchet with the proper attachment. Or you can use a drill with a setting clutch. Do not over tighten. Take one of the other rails that does not have a sleeve in it. Make sure that the holes match up to the holes that are already been put in. Set in your set screws and don't forget the lock washer. Hand tighten for a final tightness. Place them on the cross members on the outside of the angles. If you have the issue where you have a gap, remove the one sleeve, turn it around, and mate it up. This is how you want your rails to look. Tighten the set screws. Don't forget the lock washer. Hand tighten for a final tightness. Do not use an impact gun. Attaching the rails to the cross members, remove the carriage bolts out of the front angles. Do this on both sides. Slide the carriage bolts into the bottom channel until you hit the angle. Slide the angle back into place. Hand tighten at this point. Do this on both sides. On the back end of the rack, you can slide the channels over top of the carriage bolts, hand tighten. Do this on both sides. To attach the power beam, unloosen the 4 bolts on each side of the power beam. Slide them in the end of the rails. 2 on one side, 2 on the other side, then come back to 2 on one side and go back to 2 on the other. When you get it in place, flush it up. Make sure it's nice and snug. Tighten the bolts. Tighten up both sides. Make sure all 4 nuts are tight. This is your main power beam. You can adjust your rail to the outside of the crossmember. Some rails will have a 5-inch overhang. Adjust to that 5-inch mark, tighten them up. Do this on both sides. Putting on the center beam. Loosen the nuts of the 5/16 bolts. Slide them in to the motor side. Hand tighten them. To attach your towers, unloosen the 2 nuts. Slide them in the channel a portion of the way down. Remove the nuts on the other end of the center beam. This is where you assemble your front roll assembly. Remove the sleeve, one of the locking collars. Slide your center assembly in. Put your lock collar back on. Put the sleeve back on. At this point, place your roller across the rails. Gently slide the sleeve into the center beam. You can adjust your towers to approximate length on both sides. Take the nut off the roller and go in the 3rd hole down. The top hole is a tie down hole. When both the nuts are on, you can tighten them. Do this on both sides. Find the center point on your roller. Make a little mark, and this is where you're going to set your lock collars. Leave yourself about a 1/8 gap on each side. And tighten the Allen hex key. If it pulls to one side, just loosen off your bolts on the center beam. Readjust. Snug them back up. The center beam should slide freely from side to side. At this point, add your grease. It stops the rollers from binding. If you have excess grease, wipe it off. Adjust your towers from measuring from the front of the rails. Tighten. Equal gaps on both sides. Do this on both sides. After the towers are tight, tighten the bolts on the center beam. Centering the loader, you need to measure the front of your box from inside to inside of the rail, as well as the back of the box from inside to inside. Here I'm measuring between the base plates. For the back of the truck, you do the same at the front. Once you find that measurement, you want to have equal overhang on both sides of your cross members. Adjust your uprights according. Once you find that measurement, just snug up one of the nuts, and you can do minor adjustments when it's on the truck. To adjust your uprights, just loosen the nuts and adjust accordingly. You will probably need a hand to get the rack onto the truck, but once you get the rack on the truck, take C-clamps or a clamp of some kind. Clamp your base plates to the rails. At this point, you can do your minor adjustments. Undo the one nut that you tightened before you put the rack up. After your base plates are in place, clamped, tighten your uprights. When drilling your base plates, just make sure that under the rail has good backing for the nut to come up to. It is best to drill a pilot hole with a 1/8 bit. Work your way up to a 3/8. Tighten the bolt as tight as you can. Once you put your bolts in place on one side of your truck, just measure and do the same on the other side. When setting up the overhang, undo the nuts on the top angle on top of the cross members. Do this on all four corners. Once all the nuts are loosened off, you can pull the top rails. So you want to line up the roller with the bumper in the receiver. Then tighten the nuts. Do this on all four corners. This is how it should look. Now you can align your bumper with the height of your boat, and also you can take it so it goes below the tailgate, so when you open the tailgate it doesn't hit. Find the happy spot, tighten the nuts. Do a test run just in case. This is the backup switch. This is the breaker, which is good to have off whenever you are driving or not using it. This is your wireless kit attached to your solenoid. You can loosen a nut to adjust the wires, which is for your installation to whatever you need to. It also comes with 30 feet of wire. The key fob. A is up, B is down. Due to the differences in every vehicle, the wiring install will be different. However, most trucks, you need to mount the solenoid, the wireless, and the breaker within an 18 inches of the battery. At that point, you run the wire down the firewall, along the frame rail, and then up through your rear tail light. After you have the wire through the box of your truck, hook up the motor, with the black being on the right, the red being on the left. If the direction is backwards, swap your leads. Tighten your nuts. Put your caps on. Once your motor is all hooked up and your caps are on, you can zap strap your wire along your cross member and down your uprights. Make sure you cut your tails off. When you're doing the ropes, take the rope out of the bag. Do not cut it. Fling your one end of the rope over top of the front roller. Take your other end of the rope and fling it over top of the other side of the roller. Climb up in your truck. Grab your rope. Go over the roller, back under. Pull it over onto the drive roller. Set approximately about an 8-inch tail. Tape it from the motor to the outside of the power beam. Put 3 to 4 wraps on 3 sections of that tail. Do this on both sides. When rolling up your rope, make sure that your drive rollers are going towards the cab of your truck. Put tension on it so the rope stays tight. Wrap it 7 to 9 times. Once you do that, grab both ropes, pull it to the front of your boat. That should be up against your bumper. Cut it at that length. To make your loops, measure in 20 inches. Take a paint pen, make a mark. Stick the rope inside the fid. When you stick your rope in the fid, there is a lock on it. Put your rope in and pull it back slightly. It'll lock the rope in place. Take the fid and go in at the line. Weave it every 2 to 3 inches, in and out 3 times. This makes a loop. Before you pull it tight, take your carabiner and put it in there, so you know how big to make your loop. Pull the fid out, adjust your loops. Make sure that both your lines are the same length. This you can attach now to the boat. Make sure you turn your carabiners so that the large end faces the truck, the small end is in the eye bolt. Making the stern lines, do the following steps. First, measure from eyelet to the boat where you hook it up. 2. Subtract 8 inches. This is the measurement of the stern line. 3. Add 40 inches to the measurement to compensate for the loops. 4. Do a loop on one end of the rope and put a carabiner in it, with weaving in the 20 inches. 5. Measure the rope for the stern line final length. 6. Make another loop at the measurement point and put it in the ring. Make sure to put the ring in before you start weaving. Make 2 of these exact ropes, one for each side of your boat. When you make your loops and you put your carabiner in it, turn your carabiner so the small end is in the loop. Adjust the loop on the rope accordingly. Now that your stern lines are built, put them on something solid, stretch your ropes out. This is just to seat the ropes in the right place. And grab your ropes and just make sure they're the same length, and you may have to do some minor adjustments by pulling the inner rope just slightly out. Make sure they're the exact same length. This is very important. Put the stern line through the top of the eyelet by taking the carabiner off. Put your carabiner back on the rope, hook it up to your boat. Your boat should sit roughly 4 inches off the ground. Do this on both sides. At this point, take the tension out of your ropes. With the key fob in one hand, keep tension on your ropes and tighten them up. Lift your boat up till the boat lays across both of the rollers. Basically, you want your boat to stop just as it touches the second rollers, which is your power rollers. When you get your boat up, just make sure you're center by looking at your roller on the back. If you're not quite center, give it a little push. Keep your boat going up until it hits the rollers. Once your boat gets onto the second roller, it'll balance there. It will not fall off. From this point, you need to take your measurement from the eyelet on the power beam to the eyelet that goes to your boat where you hook it up. This is the measurement that you're going to need to hook up your tie-down lines. Take your stern lines off. Once you have your measurement of the tie-down lines, it's going to be as the following. First, get your measurement. Second, add 40 inches, and that's the length you cut your rope. When you're making your tie-down lines, use your fid, go back 20 inches, put one ring, either the ring on the stern line and or the other ring that you have in your kit. You'll make two of these exact lines. When you're making this line, you may have to go inside the other loop line. When you make that other loop, that's where you put your other ring. Either the loose ring and or the ring on the stern line. Once you have both the lines built, make sure your lengths are the exact same on both of them. This is obviously an approximate of the tie-down lines. You may have to adjust them length, either longer or shorter, once your boat is in final spot on your loader. Once both your lines are built, double check. Stretch out your lines to set them. Make sure the lengths are the same. Then hook them back up to the loader. Put your stern line in. Put your carabiner in. Hook it back up to your boat. Do this on both sides. At this point, take the carabiner off of the main line, put it through the ring, At the end of your tie down loop, hook the carabiner back onto the rope, hook it up to your boat, and make sure you turn the carabiner towards your truck. Do this on both sides. At this point, lift her up, put her on the top of your truck, make sure your center when your boat goes up to the roller, give it a push if it's not, lift it up until the motor groans. That means the ropes are tight, and she's now set in place. Silicone your caps in. To put them in, put one side in first, give it a good tap. Do this on all 6 places, 2 of the rails, 4 on the cross members. Hopefully this video was helpful. If you still have any questions or concerns, you can reach us at loadmyboat.com. Load, unload, fish.